They say the ancestors still walk among us, not as ghosts, no, but in dusty sandals and forgotten robes, testing hearts, weighing souls, and on the edge of the dry savannah, just beyond the termite-hollowed baobab, a poor boy once pushed an old woman up a long red road, not knowing she carried the spirit of a forgotten queen and the power to change his life forever. Now listen, children of the fire, lean close. This is not just a tale, it is a test. The sun had teeth that morning. It bit into the earth with sharp heat, making the sand dance like spirits rising from the grave. Crows screamed in the trees. The goats wouldn't cross the road. And in the heart of Mbali village, just where the clay path splits like a snake's tongue, lived a boy called Kweku. Skin like roasted groundnuts. Eyes dark like storm clouds before they burst. He was lean, not with strength, but with hunger. The kind of hunger that sticks to your bones and teaches you to listen to the silence. His father had gone west to find work in the mines of Ghana. His mother, taken by the fever of the river 2 seasons past. Kweku had only one thing left, a rusted, limping wheelbarrow with one side that squeaked like a rat spirit. He used it to carry firewood for the elders, goat dung for the farmer, calabashes of palm wine when the men got thirsty under the sun. But that morning, the wheelbarrow would carry something else. It was just past the market hour when the wind changed. The scent of roasted maize and peppered okra gave way to something older, stranger. The smell of dust and rain that had not yet come, of ground that remembers every footstep, even the ones from 1,000 years ago. That's when he saw her, an old woman, leaning on a carved ebony staff, draped in tattered cloth the color of distant thunder, her hair, silver, not gray, coiled around her head like the rivers of the spirit world. Her eyes, those eyes, they saw through trees, through men, through time. She stood at the bottom of the hill, staring at the path that curved upward toward the thorn-thick bushland beyond. "Boy," she said, voice like a drum muffled in goat hide, "I must go to the place where the hills meet the sky. But my legs are tired, and the spirits grow impatient." Kweku blinked. He looked behind him. No one else was there, just him and the rusted wheelbarrow and the old woman with the voice that sounded like the griots in dreams. "You want me to push you?" he asked. She nodded, slowly. "If you will carry me, I will carry you." Kweku laughed a little, not out of rudeness, but surprise. "I have no money, Mama, no strength to carry more than this wheel and its bones." "I asked for your hands," she said, "not your riches." The boy stared up the long path. It rose like a challenge, steep, red, uneven, lined with stones and gossiping trees. Kweku sighed, wiped the sweat from his brow, and bent to steady the wheelbarrow. "Climb in, Mama. I'll take you where you need to go." And so she climbed, creaking like an old gate, her breath rattling like wind through hollow gourds. Her staff rested across her lap like a sleeping snake. She said, "No thank you, no blessings, only silence, and silence can speak louder than thunder." As they began to climb the hill, something strange happened. The air grew still. Birds vanished from the trees. A red butterfly followed them for a moment, then flew back. And the earth, it began to whisper, not with words, no, but with memory, as if the path itself remembered who she was and what lay ahead. The wheelbarrow squeaked louder. The stones seemed to shift. Kweku pushed harder, his bare feet scraping against dry thorns and burning soil. But he did not stop. Not when the sweat stung his eyes, not when the wind turned cold, not even when the woman began to hum an ancient song, one he had never heard, but somehow knew. Then she spoke again, soft, barely above the rustle of leaves. "Kweku, why did you say yes?" He paused, chest heaving, "Because no one else would." The old woman smiled, and in that moment, the wind sighed. Not just any wind, no, the kind that stirs the robes of ancestors, the kind that carries secrets across deserts, the kind that changes everything. The path grew steeper. Each stone felt heavier than the last, as if the mountain itself was testing the boy's will. The wheelbarrow moaned like an old widow, and the wooden handles dug into Kweku's palms until his skin split in thin red lines. But he gritted his teeth and pushed. Above them, vultures circled, not hungry, no, watching, as if they sensed that something ancient was being reborn on that hill. The woman in the wheelbarrow had not spoken again. She sat like a carved spirit, unmoving, humming her wind song. Her presence, it filled the air, not heavy like burden, but deep like drum beats in a burial rite. Even the trees leaned back as they passed, as though bowing or hiding. And still, Kweku pushed. Time changed on the path. One moment, it was midday. The next, the sun had dimmed behind a veil of thin, ghost-colored clouds. The smell of smoke began to rise. Not firewood smoke, but sacred smoke, like when the elders burn bitter herbs during naming rites. Kweku paused. "Mama," he panted, glancing over his shoulder. "Are we close?" She answered with a whisper. "You are closer than you've ever been, but not where you think." Before Kweku could ask what she meant, the trees parted, and there, just beyond the bend, was a place he had never seen before. A flat clearing ringed by black stones. In the center stood a tree with no leaves, thick, gnarled and white like the bones of a whale. Beneath it, a circle of smooth stones surrounded the shallow bowl filled with water that shimmered like moonlight, even under cloud. Kweku blinked. "This is not the way to any village I know." The old woman climbed down from the wheelbarrow. No longer weak, no longer creaking. She stood tall, straight, her back unbent like a warrior queen. "You do not know it," she said, "because it is not a place for the eyes. It is a place of memory." She raised her staff, and the wind returned. It blew in low spirals, whispering his name, "Kweku, Kweku." The stones hummed, the trees shivered, the bowl of water rippled, not from the breeze, but from something beneath, something waking. Then she turned to him. "You are a boy who carried a burden that was not his, without asking why. That is rare. That is sacred." Kweku didn't speak. His hands trembled. A strange pressure filled the air, like standing inside a storm. "Sit," she said, motioning to the circle. He obeyed. She dipped her hand into the water and let it fall in drops onto the ground. Then she began to speak them, not to him, but to the earth. "O ancestors, daughters of dust, sons of sky, hear me. This child with empty pockets carries the heart of a lion. Let the truth find him. Let the veil fall. Let his name echo beyond this hill." As she chanted, the air around them began to shimmer. Kweku blinked, and the clearing changed. He was no longer sitting on dirt. The ground beneath him turned to polished stone, smooth and cold. The white tree grew tall and gold, its branches flowering with burning leaves. Figures emerged from the mist, not ghosts, but tall beings with skin like night and eyes like sunrise. They wore robes that shifted like smoke and crowns of braided flame. They stared at him, not with cruelty, not with warmth, but with knowing. And the old woman, she stood beside them now, her tattered cloth transformed into a royal wrap of indigo and gold. Her staff shone with the markings of the old gods. "You carried me, child," she said, her voice now thunder and river. "But I was never just a woman. I am Ahosi Muna, keeper of the forgotten throne, queen of the dustborn." Kweku gasped. "What, me?" Her eyes softened. "Because kindness that is given without reward is the truest offering." The spirit stepped forward. One placed a hand on Kweku's chest, and the pain vanished. The cut on his hands healed, the ache in his belly gone. In its place, something new, strength, warmth, light, as though the sun had been folded into his bones. "You have passed the first trial," Ahosi Muna whispered. "First?" he asked. She smiled. "There is always more than one hill to climb." And just like that, the vision faded.
The tree returned to bone, the spirits to shadow. Only the boy and the queen remained. She stepped forward and placed something in his hand, a black stone, smooth, round, and pulsing faintly with heat. When the second path reveals itself, she said, "You will know what to do." And then she was gone, vanished into the whispering trees like smoke at dawn. Kweku stood alone, holding the stone, and wondering what road his kindness had truly opened. The sun was sinking by the time Kweku left the spirit grove. The air behind him still buzzed with silence, too deep to be empty. But ahead, the world had returned. Crickets called from the grass, the thorn bushes whispered, and the red road stretched long and winding back toward Mbali village. In his palm, the black stone pulsed softly, not warm, not cold, but alive, like it was listening. Kweku gripped it tighter. What had just happened? A woman, no, a queen with the power of ancestors had disappeared into smoke. He had no riches, no answers, only this stone, and a promise that more was coming. As he walked, the trees signed and something shifted. The wind turned wrong. Not harsh, but watching. And ahead, rising from the dust like a figure from a fire dream, stood a man, tall, dressed in traveler's cloth, but clean, too clean for these roads. His smile stretched wide, but never reached his eyes. His walking stick had a silver snake carved into it. "Boy!" the man called out. "You look like one who's seen a ghost." Kweku slowed his step. "I've seen more than that," the man chuckled, deep and slow. "Well, some truths are heavier than goats. Best put them down before your back breaks." Kweku didn't laugh. "What do you want?" he asked. The man grinned. "I want to help you, child. I saw the old woman you carried up the hill. She left nothing for your trouble, did she?" Kweku frowned. "She left more than you know." "Oh?" The man raised a brow. "A stone? Bah, you can't eat it. Can't sell it. Give it here. I'll trade you a bag of coins from Lagos. Real gold, real silver. You'll never be hungry again." There was something strange about them, like mirrors that showed what you wanted to see, but never what was true. "No," he said. "I won't trade it." The man's smile sharpened. "Why hold on to something useless?" Kweku's fingers tightened around the stone. "Because it was earned, and not everything valuable shines." For a moment, the traveler said nothing. The wind dropped. The birds fell silent. Then he laughed, loud, bitter, ugly. His form began to shift, his shadow stretching, face flickering like flame. His silver snake staff hissed. "You dare defy me?" he growled, voice now echoing like a canyon. "I am Esu, the trickster between worlds. I test the hearts of men. I offer paths, not gifts, and you, poor dusty child, just slammed the door of fortune in your own face." Kweku's heart pounded. Esu, the crossroads spirit, the deceiver, the one even gods avoid offending. But he stood his ground. "If you are the test," Kweku said slowly, "then I choose the path of truth, not greed." Esu's eyes narrowed. The air crackled. His staff struck the earth, and the road beneath Kweku split open. Down he fell, swallowed by red dust, tumbling through shadows, through screams, through visions of gold and fire and memory, until he hit the ground with a grunt. He landed in a cave, wide, round, lit by glowing roots that hung from the ceiling like pale serpents. And at the center of the cave sat a mirror, no frame, no base, just a floating sheet of water glass that shimmered like it breathed. The stone in Kweku's hand pulsed brighter. Then a voice, not Esu, not Ahosi Muna, but something older, whispered, "Look and know who you are." He stepped forward and the mirror came alive. He saw himself, not just the boy of today, but the boy of memory, carrying his mother on her fever journey to the herbalist, crying behind the mango tree when his father left, sharing his last yam with the twins next door during famine. Then the images shifted. He saw himself standing on a tall mountain, surrounded by people in royal garb, holding a staff shaped like the same black stone.
He saw his hands healing soil, his voice calming storms, his eyes glowing with the fire of kings. He staggered back. "What is this?" And the whisper came again. "You are not poor. You are hidden. You are not forgotten. You are chosen, and your journey has only just begun." The mirror faded. The cave began to collapse. Rocks tumbled. Roots snapped. Kweku gripped the stone, and a crack of thunder tore the air. Suddenly, he was back on the path, back in the world. But everything was different. He felt stronger. He felt seen. And in the wind, he heard the voice of Ahosi Muna. "The second path is past. Now climb the third." The wind had changed again, but this time it sang. It danced around Kweku like a cloak woven from breath and memory. Every step he took down the red path now echoed with strength he didn't know he had. A rhythm, a grounding, as if the earth beneath him had begun to recognize his feet. The black stone no longer pulsed. It glowed, and when Kweku looked into its smooth surface, he no longer saw a poor boy with splintered hands and empty pockets. He saw someone rising, someone becoming, but with every step forward, he could feel it. The third trial was near, and this one would not test his strength. It would test his heart. By the time he reached the edge of Mbali village, night had already settled. The moon rose full and amber behind the hills, casting long shadows that stretched like stories. The huts looked smaller now, quieter, as if the village itself was holding its breath. And in the center of the village square was a fire. It wasn't like the usual cooking fires or palm wine gatherings. This one was large, too large, with flames licking the air like spirits trying to escape. Around it stood the elders, wrapped in silence. Children peeked from behind doors. The dogs did not bark. Even the drums, which usually whispered through the dark, were still. Something was wrong. Kweku stepped forward. Then he saw him, Elder Tano, the oldest man in Mbali, standing at the edge of the fire, holding a boy by the arm. And the boy was Kweku's cousin Kojo, thin, trembling, and surrounded by whispers. "He stole from the shrine," Elder Tano cried, voice cracked and brittle. "He took the sacred kola meant for the ancestors. The spirits are angry. The drought worsens. The crops die. This child must be punished." The crowd murmured. Some nodded. Others looked away. Punishment in Mbali was not just scolding, not for shrine theft. It meant exile. Or worse. Kweku's blood went cold. Kojo was younger than him. Wild, yes. Mischievous, sure. But he was no thief of spirit offerings. His eyes now were full of fear, but also something else. Truth. Then Kweku heard the wind again. "Speak or silence will become your sin." He stepped forward. "No," he said, loud and clear. "Kojo didn't do it." The crowd turned. Elder Tano narrowed his eyes. "And how would you know, boy who walks with dust?" Kweku took a breath. "Because I saw the real thief." Gasps, murmurs. Kweku continued. "It was a trader from beyond the hills. He came during market hour. I watched him slip behind the shrine when no one looked. He took the kola. I didn't speak. I was afraid." "Then why speak now?" the elder challenged. Kweku raised the black stone high. "Because I have faced spirits who see through lies. I have carried a queen. I have looked into the fire of my soul, and I will not let truth burn tonight." The flames flared, the wind howled, the fire bent toward Kweku, and from the dancing smoke, Ahosi Muna stepped forward, visible only to him, yet her presence shook the earth. "You chose truth over fear," she whispered, "and now the fire will answer." She raised her hand. The flames roared skyward, then curled inward, collapsing into the sacred bowl at the center of the fire circle. In the embers remained a single footprint, long, heavy, too large for any child. The elder fell to his knees. By the spirits, the boy told truth. Kojo was released. The crowd bowed their heads in shame. Mothers wept. Fathers nodded with new respect. And Kweku, he stood taller than he ever had, not because they praised him, but because he had protected truth. Later that night, as the village slept, Ahosi Muna appeared once more, beside the baobab tree, in full regalia. "Kweku," she said, "you have passed the third path." He bowed his head. "I only did what I had to." She smiled. "That's what makes you worthy. Your truth was never in your mouth, it was in your bones." She handed him something wrapped in goat skin. When he opened it, he saw a map drawn in ink made of ash and light, and at the center, a mark shaped like his black stone. "This," she said, "is your final road, the one only you can walk." Kweku looked out at the night horizon. No fear, only fire. The map smelled of smoke and river mud. Its edges were soft, like something aged, passed from hand to hand for generations. And in its center pulsed a symbol drawn in black ash, a stone surrounded by waves and a crown above. Kweku traced the lines with his thumb. The map was not to any place he knew, not a path to market, not a trade road. No, this was a map of the soul, a journey written in spirit and choice. He looked up at the night. Behind him, Mbali village slept, peaceful, still. Ahead me, the stars blinked like the eyes of watching gods. He folded the map, tied it to his waist, and walked into the dark. The road took him far, past the whispering trees where he had first pushed the queen in her tattered cloth, past the sacred rock where boys became men, beyond even the edge of the hunting lands where only spirits walk by night. He crossed a dry riverbed, climbed the bones of an old volcano. 3 nights passed, 4. Each night, the wind sang softly, always in the voice of Ahosi Muna. This road is not for the feet, it is for the heart. On the 5th morning, Kweku reached the place from the map, a clearing hidden between 2 cliffs, where mist rose from the ground like ancient breath. At its center stood a pool of water, perfectly still, as if it had never been touched. Beside it, a giant stone gate carved with symbols older than memory. 2 eyes were carved into the rock, one open, one closed, and written above the arch in forgotten tongue, yet clear to his mind. Only one who has carried the world may enter the heart of it. Kweku stepped forward. The stone in his hand pulsed once, twice, then dissolved into light. The gate opened. Inside was not a chamber. It was a memory. A golden hall stretched before him, filled with the voices of generations, not speaking, singing, voices of those who built the first drums, who spoke to fire before fire had a name, who knew the language of trees and called lightning by its praise name. And there, seated upon a throne of wind and smoke, was Ahosi Muna. No longer hidden, no longer disguised, she wore the sky on her shoulders and the earth around her waist. "Kweku," she said, "you have come home." He knelt, unsure what else to do, but she raised him. "You carried me, not knowing I was queen. You refused Isu's temptation. You stood for truth before your people. You followed the map not with fear, but with faith." She extended her hands, and in them something strange. His old wheelbarrow, restored, polished, its iron gleamed, its wood glowed like spirit oak. "This," she said, "is no longer for carrying burdens." She touched it, and it changed again. It became a throne, smooth, sturdy, humble in shape, yet shining with deep power. "Kweku, from this day, you are not boy of dust. You are keeper of the road." Thunder rolled, but no clouds. Wind howled, but no storm. Instead, from every corner of the hall came beings. Ancestors wrapped in flame, lion spirits with silver eyes, bird women with wings of stars. Each one bowed, not to a king, but to a heart. Ahosi Muna spoke one last time. "You see, Kweku, you thought you were pushing me, but truly, you were pushing yourself. Forward, higher, toward your name." And then the hall began to fade. The spirits returned to wind, the queen to ash, and Kweku found himself standing alone, but never lonely. because something inside him had awakened, not magic, legacy. He returned to Mbali weeks later, but he was no longer the boy with a squeaky wheelbarrow. He became the one they brought questions to, the one children sat before at sunset waiting for tales, the one who walked with elders as an equal, and when drought came or sickness or spirit storms, he knew what to do, not from books, not from coin, but from the journey of the heart. They built him a house beside the baobab tree, and above the door, carved deep in wood, were the words, "Truth is the throne that never breaks." Even the dustiest road may lead to the palace if the traveler carries kindness.